Looking overseas as Hong Kong emerges from its fourth COVID-19 wave after 4 months, the longest so far, its situation remains under control, with the 7-day moving average for unknown infections dropping to less than 5 yesterday.
Well, and if this continues, discussions on the quarantine-free travel bubble arrangement between Hong Kong and Singapore can resume.
Singapore's Transport Minister Ong Ye Kung said yesterday that Singapore has received a proposal from Hong Kong to reopen borders safely, which the government is studying. Hong Kong had announced earlier that residents who take part in travel bubble arrangements would have to complete 2 doses of vaccines and wait at least 14 days after the second jab before they can go on those flights.
Well, if you recall, the Hong Kong-Singapore travel bubble was suspended 1 day before its scheduled flight on November 22nd amid Hong Kong's worsening COVID-19 situation.
The Straits Times' Hong Kong correspondent Claire Huang joins us for an update. Claire, 2 things will matter to visitors to Hong Kong: the city's current COVID-19 situation as well as its vaccination progress. So firstly, what's the latest on Hong Kong's COVID situation?
Hi, Oriento. Well, the 4th wave that lasted 4 months has finally shown signs of tapering, with daily local infections down to 0 in recent days and hovering at the low single digits. So the Secretary for Food and Health, Sophia Chan, yesterday said that swimming pools and beaches will be reopened, cinemas and performance venues, will have capacity raised up to 75% from 50%. And then they are also going to allow religious gatherings kept at 30% of the capacity. Whereas the other measures like public gatherings, kept at 4, and closures of bars, pubs, nightclubs, those will stay. So Professor Chan had stressed that these are by no means a relaxation of rules. And if you look at that, it's not really much easing. And that's because Hong Kong cannot afford to do so with the Easter break around the corner.
Well, how about vaccinations then, Claire? What are the government's plans to encourage a higher take-up rate if that's still an issue?
Well, for vaccination rates, right, Chief Executive Carrie Lam today said that her government was looking into, incentives. Previously, she said that, they were looking into incentives for travelers. And today in her usual weekly doorstop, she was talking about the 3 benefits of being vaccinated. The first one being it's much more convenient than taking the COVID-19 tests every 14 days. Okay, this is something that staff in certain sectors are subjected to. You're looking at teachers in schools, F&B staff, beauticians, construction workers. All these people have to take tests every 14 days, okay? So the second point she made was that people who, are vaccinated will be able to go easily to the elderly homes, to visit their loved ones, to the hospitals. And third point that she made was on traveling. So Mrs. Lam reiterated that, there's enough vaccine supply for the entire population, 7.5 million of us here, and urged everyone to go for their jabs.
Claire, just picking up on that last point on travel, what's the public sentiment towards overseas travel? Now in Singapore, people are looking forward to be able to travel again. If there is a similar desire in Hong Kong, would it help to spur people's motivation to get vaccinated? Or actually, by having more residents inoculated against COVID-19, would that have a ripple effect in making Hong Kong a more attractive and safe leisure and business destination?
Yes and yes. So there, Hong Kongers love to travel, the weekend getaways, you've got more holidays here than in Singapore. And, if all the places they like to go to, such as Japan, South Korea, Thailand, if travelers who are vaccinated and then they can go for quarantine-free, vacations, I think that would be quite an incentive for a lot of the Hong Kongers to actually want to go for the jabs voluntarily. So it'll be a relief for them. Also compared to the rest of the cities, right, in the world, Hong Kong has probably the largest group of overseas Singaporeans. So you find that many of the Singaporeans here would want to travel home. They've not been home for such a long time. So that will motivate a lot of them to get the jabs. As for the tourism industry, they definitely welcome this. It's not rocket science that many in this sector are, actively going for the jabs, because this means that cross-border tours and travel can be restarted. So they'll take what they can get.
Well, let's go back to, I guess, yesterday's news about the Hong Kong-Singapore travel bubble. Now, Hong Kong's travel industry has called on the government and prospective travel bubble partners to recognize each other's approved COVID-19 vaccine. So let's take Sinovac's vaccine as an example. It's one of 2 vaccines administered in Hong Kong, as you know, but Singapore hasn't approved it for use here. Do you foresee any issues if the receiving country hasn't approved a particular vaccine, and what can be done to address these issues, Claire?
Well, this is the elephant in the room, Ollie, that has not yet been addressed. I think both parties, if you're talking about specifically on Singapore-Hong Kong travel bubble, they're working these details out. And you need both parties to agree to the terms and conditions, right? On the part of Hong Kong, though, the position is that as long as the passengers on bubble flights are vaccinated, the type of brand or what it is does not matter. Secretary for Commerce and Economic Development Edward Yao said yesterday, being inoculated is likely to be the trend going forward, and that's why they take this position. That said, this is going to be quite tricky, Ollie. Should we allow people who have taken a vaccine with reported lower efficacy levels on these quarantine-free bubble flights that are meant to be safer than your normal flights? So that's a question that comes up. Now, experts have said that even though you're vaccinated, you can possibly still spread the virus until herd immunity is attained. And then there's this other thing, which was raised by people, the businessmen, the business leaders and representatives in Hong Kong. They were asking if they have to take both the BioNTech and the Sinovac vaccines. And if that's even possible. So they're asking because some of them need to go to the mainland for work. And then they also need to go to Europe. But there have been reports or early signs, that those who have taken the Chinese vaccine may get more convenient access if they want to go to the mainland. So what happens to those people who take BioNTech then? Or non-Chinese vaccine. So what if the governments around the world decide on a list of vaccines that they have approved as a prerequisite for travelers, then I guess these are the things going forward that different governments have to sort it out.